This is my Fiji Cube 40-gallon sump build. Now this stuff comes very well packaged. Every one of these pieces for the sump, all the baffles were well protected. Now if I did a video of me just unwrapping this video will go on for about an hour. So I'll save you some time and watch me slowly pick at it. By the end, the only thing I learned was get a spot started, pull it slow, try to get it off as one solid piece as possible, and take your time and just be prepared. This will probably take longer than your sump build. Alright, we finally got that done, so let's take a look. This is the baffle section, and it says to use PVC cement, but I'm going to use some Instaset and some BRS glue. So I just soak this thing down with the Instaset, and seemed to work out pretty good for me here. I didn't have any PVC, but I had plenty of this from doing my rockscapes of the NSAs. So just go around and glue every single side was how I did it. Now the nice thing about the baffle kit is you can flip it around, and if you want it to go in on the other side of the tank, you can make it go there. And I wanted it to come in on the right side and then go through my baffles on the left. But that is fully reversible, and however you want to do it. So as you can see, you just take a bead, and then I just like to use the cap to kind of just help smooth it out and give it a little better line than what it would if I just put a big old glob on there. So I will be jumping around a little bit in this video, but I did take the time to do any piece that touched acrylic to acrylic. I super glued, and in the instructions, like I said, it does say you can use super glue as well. And the Instaset just seemed to make this go a lot faster than me having to wait a whole nother day, because patience isn't always something that I have. So once again, sprayed it with Instaset, stuck it, and then put a little bit of the glue on, and I used the cap to help smooth it out. And I'm not afraid to put a little extra, because I do want a little bit of a water seal here as best as I can get it. And as of so far, I've had no leaks on this. This has been a really good product to use. And as always, I'm not sponsored by any of this, just showing what I've been doing with my reef tank, upgrading the 125 sump. So using the Instaset, this is the final piece. Everything's already together, and it took about 10 minutes. And this is solid, ready to get dropped in. So now it's time to get going. I used the aquarium safe silicone sealant that I picked up from BRS. I know there's plenty that you can use, do your own research, but I know the biggest thing is no mold inhibitors. So now that I set it in there, see where it's going to sit, and I'm going to mark that back baffle because it's going to be hard to get my caulking gun in there. So I'll just make a mark so I can put a little bit on the back side and get that ready to go before I actually set it in there. And just trying to mock everything up. I think that took about as long trying to get the design idea of what I wanted to get. But mark everything out, take your time. The hole measured twice, cut once. You only want to measure this thing one time. I took a skimmer that I had laying around and wanted to get everything kind of pre-fit in there and make sure that I had the right spacing for future skimmers that I were going to buy. So once I figured out what I wanted to get for the skimmer situated for my future skimmers that I was thinking about, they're all pretty much in the same size. I tried drawing a straight line. I wasn't happy, wasn't using a level on it, wasn't using a straight edge. Those are other options. So I just went with the old drywaller trick. Just put the marker at the end of the tape. It's a little funny with the marker compared to my pencil or knife, but at the end, it drew a straight line and it got the job done. So I was able to just mark it and pull it straight down. And from here, we're ready to move on to the next phase once we got a line that I'm happy with and start siliconing these sections together. Get everything taken out and start over now. Now from here, it's pretty straightforward. Put a little silicone on some of the lines you made, especially the ones that are going to be harder to get to. And I put it right on the back glass, made sure it's nice and wide. I know some of the tricks people use is putting tape. I'm a painter drywaller. I do caulking at least a couple times a week, so when I'm painting, so it's not too big of a deal to try to just get it in there. But I know to get a really precise line, put a piece of tape in and you'll be happy with it. But once you put it in there, you got plenty of working time with this stuff, about 5 minutes. It does get pretty vinegar smell, so it's pretty fumy. That's probably my biggest thing with doing this, is you almost need to wear a mask if you're going to be inside. But make sure you seal anything that's going to touch the glass. And I even went as far as running silicone over my glue joints just to make sure they were nice and secure. And I want this thing to be as waterproof as possible, so the water runs the way I want it to run and not just go through the sump straight across. And I think the only other tip I could have for putting on the silicone would be, you don't got to push really hard with this stuff, and make sure you got a rag to keep your hands clean. You don't want to end up with a big glob on your hands trying to get it off later. And I personally don't use gloves, but I'm sure gloves would be good, but you don't need to push hard to get a nice clean line. That'll make it get spread out too far, and it's just about putting on a nice bead and not cutting the tips too wide. Now it's time to put the refugium plate in. This thing has got a very glossy finish to it, very clean, and just make sure you got everything measured out, and that way you can just keep moving forward. I looked for what I wanted to go for future and gave myself some options, and just make sure you put a piece of tape on the top will help hold it in place, and that'll keep everything secure until you can get the silicone in there, and then the silicone will do the rest of the job. And I just leave the tape on overnight while everything dries up, because you want to give it at least 24 hours. I did find a random box that seemed pretty square, and I was using it as a cheater measurement tool too, being a little bit lazy there. But I also was able to use the square edge. That was the only thing this kit didn't come with, was an actual square to use. But any kind of tape would work. I just used the orange 3M medium adhesive, but I'm sure a blue painter's tape or even a masking tape, just something. These pieces aren't heavy. The first one sits in nice. Here's my dirty protein skimmer. I did clean that thing up when I was done, because that thing's going in the box downstairs, as I'm going to upgrade this protein skimmer for this sump as well. So at this point, this is probably the easiest piece, but the name of the game is clean your work area, clean your hands, and it should just go pretty easy. Take an extra few seconds to square it up with that any kind of right angle you can find, and you should be good. Check the top and bottoms, make sure you want it, mark it out on both sides, and you're ready to go. This is pretty straightforward on this one. One line, top and bottom, both sides, and you're good to go. So the last section is the return chamber, and it has two baffles to kind of act as a bubble plate, but once you're going through the refugium, you really shouldn't have too many bubbles in there to begin with. It does have an adjustable plate that does go on there that you'll see later. Once again, mark the top and the bottom and put some tape on there. Now the biggest thing to consider is, for me, I wanted the biggest refugium I could fit in here with still having a good skimmer, but I didn't want my return pump chamber to be so small that the ATO was kicking on and off every 15 minutes and draining that pump life faster and faster. So I think roughly 5 inches is what I gave, plus you get another 2 inches to that trap right there. These things are a really good quality build, and they're gonna hold sponges. I think I got some spears in there, and if you wanted to, you could probably pull them out and put in the actual blocks, but I went with the spears. Can't overpack them, or they will bend down. They are just plastic at the end of the day, so you can only expect so much when you put that many holes to let the water flow through nice. So the first one's easy to cut through, but everything's got a nice finish to it. So here's a little cheater tip I found is the first plate, once you set the distance you want, the other one's going to be a fixed distance if you're going to be using these grates. And you can just put both of them in there and it'll hold it up right in place where you need it to be. And from there you can just mark your lines, because you're going to have to put a bead of caulking on there, or silicone I should say. And you're going to put one on first just so you can actually get it smeared into the inside of it. But it's just a quick tip that I use, that I put it on there and everything balanced together and it kept everything nice, straight and true, so I wasn't playing any guessing games when I was trying to put it all together. Now the one nice thing about it being a glass sump and having the acrylic pieces is none of this is permanent, and it is going to hold up for what I need to do. So if I ever do need to make changes, it wouldn't be the funnest process, but it can all be readjusted in the future if it needs to be. But if you take your time, I think I should be future-proof for a little while. I thought about skimmers I wanted, future return pumps, if I was going to change it in or out, just leaving myself enough room to make any future upgrades without having to make any changes. So just put your bead of silicone on there first so you can get it on the inside. Use your finger, smear it in, and you'll be ready to go. Now after siliconing everything, I slipped my piece in, and I did grab those baffles and slip them in there. And it's easy to clean off, but I wanted to make sure that I had everything distanced just right, because those tabs that they sit on are not the widest. You don't want them to be, and so there's not a lot of room for forgiveness there. So make sure you get that step right, and then you're ready to just smooth everything out and get those nice clean lines that you're looking for. And at the end, here's the finished product. That's the return chamber with some baskets right there. That's the adjustable plate. It goes anywhere from 8 inches all the way up to 15 inches to help adjust for the skimmer, the refugium area to flow right through there. Nice skimmer area, and it's got silencers for all of the 4-inch filter socks, a nice return pump, and even with the glue it didn't turn out too bad. That's probably the worst lines in the whole thing, but everything did turn out watertight. Came with 3 filter socks. And if you remember the 125 video, that's the hang on the back overflow. Some crazy plumbing to make it around the corner without going through some plaster walls to make it into the closet. I did go on Algae Barn and I picked up 6 red mangroves. I gave 1 away, and we'll see how that one does in the freshwater compared to these ones. I got the 600 watt light on it, so got to figure out how to contain it a little bit, or I'm gonna start getting algae growth. I can see a little bit in our Red Sea skimmer that we decided to go with, and everything's going good. 3 overflows, skimming like crazy, and it's been a great product so far. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos coming up.
I get more hungry. Me want to eat the never food.
Thanks for watching us at the Laws Reef House.